This is the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast, where we have conversations with everyday martial artists about their histories and how martial arts influence their daily lives. You are listening to the abbreviated version of this podcast, which is the first 20 minutes or so of the show. Please consider supporting the show by subscribing on our Patreon page, www.patreon.com/malmag, and for about the price of one coffee shop coffee per month, you can get access to 4 new podcasts each month, 1 week before their YouTube release dates. You also have access to all of our existing shows, which at this point is about 100 hours of shows for you to enjoy. Individual shows can be purchased at our Gumroad page. That is malmag.gumroad.com. This week I connect on Zoom to Wisconsin and I talk with a very busy man, Peter Hetrick, and we talk about how he got involved in martial arts, what it was like to study with Sifu Larry Hartzell, Guru Dan Inosanto, and other luminaries. He's also a person who's put together some very large seminars and camps, and those are interesting stories as well. Sit back and enjoy. Welcome to the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast, and today I'm on Zoom and I'm connecting to a friend I made several years ago, and we're just actually sitting here reminiscing on what it's like to be old guys. And before we get started, and I've been looking forward to this conversation because I really enjoyed this gentleman when I met him, and I knew about him before, just kind of historically where he kind of fits into a lot of things. And we made up pretty good friends, and our personalities are very similar. So looking forward to this long conversation with Peter Hetrick. How are you doing, sir?
Very good. Good morning, Tim. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's like reasonable morning for Peter, and then me, I'm getting up here like 7 a.m. my time. I hope I'm not looking, the podcast is all audio for all you folks, but I hope I'm not looking too offensive to Peter here. I'm getting my coffee, so I'm getting somewhat in shape. And
yeah, let's see if I put my can right here. You can't see it, but I can't see you. So yeah.
There you go. There you go. See, you know how to. This is a master of many trades here. Well, buddy, I guess we should just start like I do all the superhero origin stories here with how you got involved in martial arts. We'll go to your origins.
Well, speaking of a long time ago, so yeah, here we go. If I can remember that far. So 1980, I got started with my father in Taekwondo. The town that I was from, Janesville, you had 2 options. You had Taekwondo from this Korean or Taekwondo from this Korean. At the same time, we also had an excellent judo instructor, which is still a friend, but I'm thinking, things would have been different if I would have started in that probably. But anyway, it's, never look back and say, well, it could have been different. Well, you know what? It's not. It's our path is preordained. I fully believe that. And it's like, okay, would I've ended up in the same place if I did this? The old quantum theory, quantum mechanics.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Egghead stuff. But yeah, so we did that. And then, of course, started reading Black Belt Magazine, Inside Kung Fu all the time. And, you see all the postings for the camps. I'm like, oh, Dan Inosanto, Larry Hartzell. It's like, man, these are first generation Bruce Lee people. And again, when you're looking back at like even the Aspen Academy of Martial Arts, which I didn't go to, my first big seminar was the CMAA in St. Louis. So I'm thinking 84. That was such a short time after the untimely passing of Bruce Lee, but it was still fresh. Now looking.
Let me interrupt you real quick. Where was this? You were in Wisconsin? Is that what you were?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I was in Wisconsin. Then
that reminds me why it sounds so familiar to my Illinois upbringing. Like, wow, it sounds like a mirror image of the time and where I was from.
Yeah, and I mean that was cool. And it's I'm going to steal a comment from Rick Fay, but he's like, I came for Bruce Lee, I stayed for Guru Inosanto, and right. I'm thinking, that is so true. And it's not to be ugly with anyone, but yeah, that's the reason I think so many of us are where we are.
Right. Well, I mean, you almost kind of have to, because I mean, you said something very factual right there about the time period. It was 84. So, the untimely passing of Bruce Lee. Unfortunately, Bruce Lee was not with us physically anymore. So if you're going and finding an attachment to the instructor, be it Dan Inosanto, be it Chris Kent, Tim Tackett, whoever you're going to, Larry Hartzell, then I mean, what is it you're there for? I mean, realistically, I don't think you're just going to stay, or you're not, so that statement is great, and I love how Rick says that, and it's got so many meanings to it, really. And so it's like, well, okay, you can be a fan of someone who's no longer there, but you kind of have to jive with the person you're going to if you're really going to learn it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I mean, just stating again, an obvious fact is, who did more for the um, uh, perpetuation of JKD than that group that we've talked about, I
Oh,
mean, it's easy to say, well, they monetized it or something else. And, just
because yeah,
a
they're
lot
all
of the,
found really rich these days.
oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. 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 I like the mansions they all live in,
Yeah,
but yeah, I like to see a lot of the old name. I say old names, you know what I mean, but
right.
Gary Dill, Ted Wong, Taki Kimura. I mean, yeah, I know of all those names, but it's like you couldn't go see them every
No,
month if you wanted to. Guru Dan, you could. So yeah, I packed in a lot of that in my day. I mean, to see that, one of Bruce Lee's original students. I'm like, okay, cool. I don't care who it is. I would go see
right.
that person,
Exactly.
which, yeah, but again, staying for Guru Inasano, it's yeah, he's the one that always encouraged the outside exploration. Let's face it, I mean, yeah, this okay, calm down here.
Right, right. It's
Yeah,
okay, Pete.
yeah,
We don't have to go political. This is about you,
yeah. Oh
realistically.
well, okay, good.
Yeah, and it's kind of what I tell people before I get on here. There's an online thing that goes on, and and we all get into that at times, and I think it's just because we get moved emotionally to do so, because some of the just outrageous things that are said, at least outrageous to us. But that doesn't need to carry into these interviews, because
Yeah, okay.
they're not that overly important enough to put out in this forum, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
I can see. Yeah.
that's as
I mean, unless
political
you
as
want
I
to talk,
get.
that's
What?
fine. Again, it's your show, but
Yeah, yeah, no, I'm just here to see you and entertain some people, hopefully. But
yeah.
yeah, so after that camp in '84, it was, then I went to the Mid Michigan camp hosted by Dan Timlin, and then the brain fart. Yeah, the Smoky Mountain camp. I think I just said that, didn't
Oh
I?
yeah.
No, 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 I
No,
didn't.
no.
Oh, and the Smoky Mountain camp. I mean, holy cow! I mean, that was just such a huge endeavor. With I mean, first time to meet a lot of the other significant people, for what changed, what altered my thinking, what kind of got me on the path that I'm, still on this day. So without that, plus just good memories, it's fun to
Right.
think back to that camp, but it's just always been a part. And then how far do you want me to keep going? Just kind of what brought me up to this point, anything, that kind
Yeah,
of
we'll
stuff.
get there. I think I want to kind of hit this era that you're talking about, because I think it's an interesting era to a lot of people that are within a particular age group, like myself. In that I was similar to you, in that I read about all of them in the news blurbs in the martial art magazines, and saw the photos, and of course, saw the advertisements for them. But I was not a person of any means to get to any of these things. My first instructor came from the Aspen camps that you discussed, and he told me the whole rundown of who the assistant instructors are, and these are all A-list, gems that are within their own right, absolute legends in the Jeet Kune Do world, let alone the martial art world. And it gets kind of funny when the assistant instructors get run down, like you're like, oh my god, wow, man, that was your lineup that taught you that's really amazing. And so I think these events that you're talking about are quite legendary within a particular generation, we should say, of JKD people. And I think there's a real interest in people just getting a little taste of what that was like. So that's kind of what I'd like you to talk about next, is some of those Smoky Mountain Camp, the would you say CMAA that you went to, uh,
Yeah,
something in St. Louis, and so that seemed like that was kind of the thing for a while. This sort of larger gathering of was it different martial arts, and then Guru Dan was part of it.
correct.
Is that the setup of it? Yeah,
Yeah,
and what sort of I guess morphed into what we would call well, I guess because everything's sort of related to us at this point, but in those sort of legends camps or training with the masters type camps, these seem like kind of a forerunner to that. But I think some of those early ones had things like it was like ninjutsu and different things like that too, which were obviously popular at the time. So I mean that, and again, that sounds just like really cool to me.
yeah. And what was nice about it was the format was you were with the instructor for a week, so that's all.
Yeah.
It's and then like at the Smoky Mountain Camp, I mean, each instructor taught their blocks of material. Mid Michigan Camp, kind of the same way. So for me, I guess the trifecta was Dan Asano, Larry Hartzell, and Master Chai. And then
Mhm.
of course Pendicard de Tours was in Michigan. Salem and the Savat, first exposure to
Oh
Savat.
wow.
Master Chai wasn't at those, but just yeah, just kind of soaking it all in. I mean, I was young and dumb and had a lot of time on my hands, and uh, just to see those folks. And then when got to one of the camps, and Guru Dan asked me, he's like, "Well, who's your instructor?" So, well, I guess that would be you, sir. I just I don't. Yeah, I'm in
It's like
Wisconsin. I
I'm a
mean,
gypsy. I'm a wandering vagabond.
yeah,
I'm
I'm
a
a
Ronin.
Ronin.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
oh, Jinx. Yeah, yeah. So, but that got me into the instructor program. So, still honored that for Wisconsin, I have instructor number one in the apprentice program.
Wow.
So I mean that was just always such a honor. What else can you say? It's like, I mean, I was just starting out, and then because I was in close proximity to Rick Fay, I spent all my other time when I wasn't going to one of the big camps, going up to all the seminars he hosted, you know. Um,
Hmm.
but back to your thing on ninjutsu, real quick. Yeah, so at the
But you are in
CMA,
the '80s, man. It's like we all
well,
like.
yeah, I mean, when you just, I mean, Sifu Fong, I mean, he was at these, and Bill Wallace,
Yeah.
one of my buddies spent the week with Bill Wallace. I spent it with Dan Asano, and then I think the second week was with Paul Vunak.
Wow.
I didn't start, but I think then it was probably around 86 that, it may have been 86 that I had Sifu Hartzell in for the first time. So, like, my first seminars I hosted myself were the Don't Break the Bank and Hold a Camp. Um, you know, Paul Vunak, he was, I mean, I'm not trying to blow my horn. I just think I was blessed to be able to bring in all these people we've been
Yeah.
talking about
Right.
and
Right.
I mean, I didn't get it started. I just said, hey, I'm selfish. If I can't go to a seminar, I'll bring the seminar to me. So,
Sounds like a
and
good idea to me.
yeah, my bank didn't like it, hosting the big camps.
I feel like
But
I'm probably have some of the last payments on that right now, but
and people said, well, would you do it the same if you could? I said, absolutely. I mean, well, no,
right.
I mean, if you had this chance to sit down and talk to Albert Einstein, would you? Well, yeah,
Yeah.
except they couldn't speak German, but it's that
Right.
still thing
That's
like,
still true.
okay, yeah, now with your phones, you do all that stuff. But,
Right.
um, yeah, so then I decided, I think I'll host a camp because I think the Mid Michigan camp may have already been going. No, actually, I take that back. That was going before mine. But then when the Smoky Mountain camp ended and the Mid Michigan camp ended, there was like no Midwest camp. So
Oh,
that's then where I said, hey, I'll bring everybody in, Guru Dancy for Hartzell, Master Chai, Pendikar, and then Bert Poe, which of course that's always usually a whole separate topic when we start talking about Bert. Tim Tackett, I just, it was great. I mean, all this stuff right there. And
wow.
yeah.
Wow. So, who were some of the other instructors in that era with all these things that you went to, other than Guru Dan, that you found just like really resonated with you?
As far as like tier one or level one folks, you mean
Oh yeah,
basically?
or anybody,
Anybody?
because a lot of them, have. Um, people have sort of, I guess, maybe disappeared into the framework a little bit, that were kind of something for, a second or two out there, or never really sought maybe that kind of notoriety, but you may know them because, like I remember, for instance, when my instructor kind of went through his list of people, I'm like, oh my God, yeah, he's in the book with Larry, or he's in, it's like, yeah, I know who you're talking about, because I don't know them that well, but I've never met them, but I know who they are because they're in Larry's book, or they're in Guru Dan's book or something. And so you start connecting these names, and for you, you got probably a chance to actually work with some of those people. And I was just curious if any of them, like, other than Guru Dan, kind of resonated with you, where you're like, yeah, that's here's something that person X said that's still with me, and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, with that being said, it's kind of like, okay, top of the mountain, Guru Dan, let's face it, see how I said, go, you should go see these guys. And of course, we have to talk about the Filipino martial arts too. I mean, that's
Right, of course.
for me, that's a part of my JKD training there. That's all I'm saying. But,
Yeah. Okay.
like getting to see Grandmaster Angel Caballas down at Fred Degerberg, which there's a
Oh,
big name that I think did
yeah.
more for everybody in the JKD, the Kali, and some shit you never heard about. I mean, I
Right.
stacked the flyers from his seminars going like, who was this guy? Okay, he was like a firearms expert, or like Johnny Lira, the boxer, a boxing coach. You just have all
Mhm.
these fantastic seminars. And I would have to say Fred was probably the most instrumental person to get people out there that maybe we didn't know about,
Right.
And uh, yeah, it was just yeah, amazing. I don't even know if I answered your question, but yeah, it's through Guru Dan, immediately like Sifu Hartzell, how can you not? You've traveled with him a lot, so you know that there's just something about him that was so sincere and so kind, and would give you the shirt off his back. And it's like, people don't really realize, maybe nowadays, I don't think they realize the impact that that level of people had, and like Chris and Cass, always saw them as the demo guy going, God, they're really good, you know, and, so it's probably of like that. I like to call it the 1.5 generation.
Right. Yeah.
Like, yeah. And, which not as a disrespect. I'm just, I'm bad at
No.
math anyway, so it sounds cool if I say, generation 1.5, but generation one in my mind are like the people you see in the Filipino martial arts book, any of the JKD books from Sifu Hartzell or Tim Tackett or any of those guys. And then just picking up the ancillary, is that a word? Ancillary? the the other guys,
I think I know what you think you mean with that word.
Hey, I make stuff up. Shakespeare made up words. I can make up words too, right? Um, but yeah, so just going in that direction just to improve everything. I mean, the Cañetes, the big names in the Filipino martial arts, obviously, and getting to see like Kakoy and the old guard of the Dos Equiparios group. Um, Bob Bremer, through Tim Tackett, met Bob Bremer, brought Tim and Bob in for a seminar in Wisconsin. I mean, there was just such a refreshing uh, concept to, okay, now we're getting in even deeper into that other group that was there with Bruce Lee, not reading books and videos and then being an expert.
Right.
The guys that could say, yeah, this is what we were doing, this is how we were doing it, this is how Bruce wanted us to do it, and it worked. The when you look at that first generation, I mean, the people that were attracted to first Bruce Lee and then Dan Asano, I mean, that's some heavy hitters there, man.
Right.
It's well, does this stuff work? I don't know. Ask Sifu Hartzell. Ask Bob
Right.
Bremer. What does it work? Well, everything works and nothing works. I don't know where I got that quote
Yeah.
from, but it's
Well,
it's
it's
just
true. I don't even think you need to quote it. It's just true.
yeah, and
As Guru Dan says, does swinging a bat the way you do in professional baseball work? Yes, but for the best guys, only about 30% of the time.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I just think that helped kind of round out the overall picture. Okay, well, this element from this instructor, and Paul Vunak was one of those people. I had probably after Guru Dan Sifu Hartzell, probably most of my time was with Paul Vunak things. And then, of course, meeting everybody else, going to Fred Degerberg's hosting the camps. It was nice to bring in, Tim Tackett, Bert Poe, Bob Bremer, those guys. And uh, yeah, I was just honored to be part of that timeline. It's kind of, I don't feel bad for like the Gen 4 and Gen 5 people that we're on now. It's when they will speak on a certain matter without having that connection to, okay, well, maybe this was taken out of context. Maybe you need to realize, when people, I'm just going to mention Paul Vunak, people put out his video clips, and then of course the keyboard warriors, well, yes, but his partner's not fighting back. It's like, guys, yeah, that would be like saying, well, Larry's throwing around this guy that's only 165 pounds. That's no big deal. It's like, well, he did it. He could always do it, and
Right.
it's just, yeah.
Well, on that one specifically, I'm not 165. I'm like 265 at times. And Larry threw me around. And that's the older Larry, not the beefy guy you saw in the video. So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it works. It works.
It worked,
well,
yeah, quite well.
well, my introduction of Bob Bremer was I picked up Bob and Tim from the airport. We went back to the hotel. Of course, we started talking stuff right off the bat, and Tim was like, "Pete, you're a pretty good kicker. Why don't you try to hit Bob with a side kick?" And I'm like, probably rather not do.
It sounds like a setup. It's a
Yeah,
trap.
I don't know if I want to do that. And then it's like I got scolded because Tim, in Tim manner and voice, I said, kick him. You try to knock that or off his feet. All right. Well, that didn't end up in planned, but
Uh,
yeah.
you're like, excuse me, I've got to make sure my life insurance is all up to date.
Yeah. Yeah. But gosh. Yeah. I'll keep rambling, but I'll trust you to keep me on topic here if I digress too far. So
No, it's perfect. We want the rambling. We want the.
And this concludes the abbreviated version of the podcast. Please consider supporting the program by going to www.patreon.com/malmag and subscribing to the show. You can also purchase this individual episode or any individual episode at our Gumroad page. That's malmag.gumroad.com. Thank you for listening to this episode with Pete Hetrick. Coming up next week, we connect to the East Coast again, North Carolina, and we talk with Rob Kelly. Our Malmag online store at martialartslifestylemagazine.com has a full selection of Timmy B's brand sticks for FMA and Krabiker Bong. Timmy B's brand now selling in Japan as well. Beautiful Timmy B's brand shirts and Dos Manos shirts are available with new t-shirt designs and more products coming soon. An online course in the Dos Manos method for FMA is available under the Courses tab. More courses coming soon. Check out the Places to Train tab to find schools near you, and click on the Events Calendar page to see what seminars and events are happening all around the world. And of course, visit our main page for articles on the martial arts. Music by Jack Al Relic. Martial Arts Lifestyle Magazine and the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast are trademarked and copyrighted by TNT LLC.